Hey there, it's Lara here. Welcome to Witchy Wednesday for the week of June 20th to 26th, 2018. So there's a lot going on this week, and I'm going to talk about the more significant things during the course of this video. And stick around till the end because I will, at the very end, I'm going to go through each of the signs and talk specifically about how the Mars retrograde, which I'm going to talk about in the video, will impact you, or what area of life that will impact you the most. So I got some feedback from a few people saying that they really like it when I touch on the signs like that. So I'm going to try to do that whenever possible. I'd love to do videos for each of the signs, that kind of thing, but time is just not permitting. Too much going on right now. So hopefully, you will benefit at least, or get something from me doing it this way. So thanks so much for being here. Thank you for subscribing and for your comments and your feedback, and sharing the videos, letting me know what you think. I really do appreciate it. I love this work, and it helps when you help me spread the word. Just did a reading for somebody actually who sent me a message this morning, and it was awesome to wake up to, a message that started, "Wow, I'm blown away," and then went on to just talk about how really, sort of accurate and validating they felt the reading was. And so that really, really keeps me going, and keeps me doing this, right? As I've mentioned before, astrology has been hugely helpful in healing in my own life. And the more I dig into it, the more I realize how profoundly helpful it can be to us, not only on an individual level, but on a collective level as well. When we're aware of the sort of collective cycles and energies, it can be helpful in understanding the bigger picture. Doesn't necessarily make it any less frustrating or upsetting when things are going on that we don't really like, but it can be helpful to understand that, and where that's all headed. So let's move on to get started with the reading here. First off, I'll just touch on where the moon's going to be over the course of the week. And as I always say, if you're somebody who follows the moon, or it can be really helpful to follow the moon and just take note of where the moon is. It changes signs every 2.5 days or so. And so I don't go really in depth into that here, except for to talk about mostly new moons and full moons. But if you keep track of where the moon is at, and you notice how you are feeling, you can get an idea for, what suits you best in terms of, what's happening for you when the moon is in certain signs, and what is working, what kinds of things work best for you when the moon is in certain signs. Just to be aware of that energy, right? Like, do you prefer if the moon is in Virgo, for example? That's really sort of a getting stuff done kind of energy, right? And of course, it depends on how that interacts with your own personal chart, but it can be helpful. So we have the moon in Libra today, and then it's moving into Scorpio on Friday, Sagittarius on Sunday, and then we're going to have a full moon in Capricorn next Wednesday, which I'll talk about in next week's video. So there are a few significant things that I want to talk about. I'm just going to show you very briefly the chart here. Oh, I forgot to turn my little light on, so I'm going to do that now. Maybe that'll make things a little brighter. Anyway, here's the chart. So you can see there's a lot going on here, right? All these conversations between the planets are happening. It's a pretty busy looking chart. But there are a few significant things that I'm going to speak to in this video. That being, well, first of all, I'll just point out to you, we have the sun. Wait, no, that's not the sun. I'm sorry, looking at it backwards here. So there's the sun in Gemini, right? It's going to move into Cancer this week, which will mark the solstice, and I'm going to talk about that in the video. And there's the moon in Libra, as I mentioned today. And then Mars in Aquarius. I'm going to talk about Mars quite a bit today because it's about to move retrograde. And then we've got Neptune here in Pisces, which is also moving retrograde. So those are sort of the significant things. And there is this still what we call a Grand Trine in water happening, right? So if you see, there is a blue triangle that's happening right there. And that's in the water signs with Mercury in Cancer, Neptune in Pisces, and Jupiter in Scorpio. So that's been going on for a bit, but still significant. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. Okay, so Neptune, I'm going to start there. Neptune went retrograde on the 18th. And I don't think I mentioned that in last week's video. I'm not sure how that escaped me, but sorry about that. The thing about this, though, is it's going on for about 5 months, so it's not a short-term influence. And this happens every year, right? So Neptune goes retrograde every year for about 5 months. So it's not so unusual. What makes this one a little bit different is that we still have this Grand Trine in water involving Neptune going on. So first of all, Neptune retrograde, it's sort of, it's a time when we may have to take off the rose-colored glasses kind of thing, right? Neptune is the planet that rules Pisces. And Neptune as an energy is very nebulous, right? It's very, it's hard to pin down. And it's associated with, on the positive end of things, our dreams, our visions, our spirituality, our connection to a higher consciousness, our connection to the bigger picture, to something greater than ourselves. And, on the lower sort of vibrational end, it's associated with illusion and delusion and deception and not seeing things clearly. And also, escapism in unhealthy ways, like addictions. And so when Neptune goes retrograde, first of all, when any planet goes retrograde, and all that means is that it appears to be moving backward in the sky. So the energies kind of intensify as it slows down, and then they are more internalized in a way when a planet goes retrograde. And they sort of, this forces us to take a look at that area that is governed by that planet, those things that are governed by that planet. And so when we have Neptune going retrograde, it's almost like a clearing of the fog in some ways. It's like, I don't know if you've ever been, driving down a road or driving down the highway, and you're seeing something and you think it's one thing, and then you get closer and you realize that's not what it was at all. It was something entirely different than you thought it was, right? It's kind of like that. So it's like a waking up to reality in some way, to sort of a realization about where we may have been a bit misguided or not seeing things clearly, or maybe we have been deceived, or we have been the deceiver. Maybe we've not wanted to see things clearly because it's just been too uncomfortable, to go there. And so this is a time to take a look at what's really going on, right? And it's an internal focus tends to be more than external, so that we can kind of work these things out for ourselves on an internal level. And it's also a bit of a, like, it can be like a vision quest in a sense, right? A spiritual um, experience or spiritual awakening in some way. And it can be important during this time to pay attention to, things like our dreams. What are our dreams trying to show us? That kind of thing. And it's a really good time to get connected with, also with, well, your spiritual side, but creativity. Um, think about this Grand Trine in water, right? So a Grand Trine is when three planets in the same element usually are in a harmonious conversation. So they are trining each other, they're making a triangle, and that is a harmonious flow. And so we have Mercury in Cancer, as I mentioned, Scorpio, Jupiter in Scorpio, and then Neptune in Pisces, right? The three water signs. And they are trining each other. Mercury will move out of Cancer at the end of the month, but it's still there right now. So this is, good time to seize opportunities in terms of our creative talents, our intuition, anything sort of water quality related. Our imagination, um, our anything healing, right? Water is related to healing as well. So anything that is related to healing, in any way, healing arts, healing of the self, alternative healing, emotional healing. Water is very emotional. Those kinds of things. So, and it's also good with Mercury in Cancer. It's like this easy flowing, heart centered communication. It's a good time for that, right? Um, but keep in mind that with water energy, you want to kind of go with the flow, right? That's what water is largely about. And it's not a time to really force or push things. And as I go through this reading and talk about some of the other energies that are happening, you're going to see that this is a theme that's playing out right now and over the course of the summer, really. So if you want to get a sense for where this Neptunian energy, this retrograde is going to be felt the most for you, then take a look at where Pisces falls in your chart. So what house does Pisces fall in your chart? I'm a Pisces sun, and my Pisces sun is in the 7th house. So for me, that's going to be a big area of focus in terms of these Neptune retrograde energies, right? Where, so I'll just give you my example of how this could look in the real world. So Neptune's going retrograde in Pisces. I have Pisces in the 7th house. 7th house is largely about one-on-one relationships and partnerships, and exchanges, of that variety. Any kind of one-to-one relating. It's also about contracts. And so, there could be sort of this me going inwards a lot and really taking a look at, maybe where I haven't been seeing things clearly in this life area, for example, or maybe putting more of these water like energies into that creativity, expression, healing of emotions, that kind of thing. And then I also look to where I have my natal Neptune, which is in the 3rd house, right? And we can, or any other planets that are making an aspect to the Neptune in Pisces. So I won't go further down the rabbit hole there, but if you look where Pisces is in your own chart, then you'll get a little more of an idea. And the water signs as well, the other water signs, Cancer and Scorpio, because it's that Grand Trine, and you can see where there are sort of these areas of life where there is this opportunity, right, happening. So the next thing I want to talk about is the summer solstice that's happening tomorrow on Thursday, the 21st. Summer solstice, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere, winter solstice in the Southern Hemisphere. But, you know, a solstice marks a turning point on the wheel of the year, right? And in the Northern Hemisphere, this is when the sun goes into Cancer, and it marks the longest day and shortest night of the year. So, you know, in like it's the pagan or witches holiday of what's called Litha, right? Celebration of the longest day and shortest night of the year. And it's a good time to sort of reflect on how far we've come and what we've done and what we've accomplished over the last 6 months since the last solstice. Ooh, shaky camera, big truck going by. And how we want to harness the energy of the sun, which is at its peak right now, to help us move forward with what we want to accomplish and grow over the next 6 months. So, summertime, which is officially starting tomorrow in the Northern Hemisphere, is when the sun moves into Cancer. And if you think about it logically, right, it's a time when we tend to take a break from things, right? We go on vacation, we take some time off, work slows down, we enjoy the company of our tribe, our family. Cancer is very associated to home, family, our roots, that kind of thing. Maybe family reunions going on, just connections with those that we care about and consider family. And it's a time for nurturing, right? Nurturing those relationships, nurturing those people, and nurturing ourselves as well, right? Don't leave yourself out of the equation. This is a good time for that, and it's the appropriate time for that. And so again, you can see where that theme of kind of slowing down and kind of going with the flow and not forcing or pushing things is playing out. So it's also a really good time to celebrate the small victories. So yesterday, I think it was, might have been the day before, I posted something on Facebook. If you want to check it out, you can go to my Facebook page. There's a link below, and there'll be a picture of a smoothie and then an explanation. But the long and the short of it is, I was having a conversation via text with my husband, and anyways, he said, small victories kind of thing, small victories, babe, and I've been thinking about that. And I wrote a little bit about it, like I said, yesterday or the day before. And it really is with this solstice, and the beginning of summer, a good time, to celebrate the small victories, right? It's not about the big things necessarily right now. It's about looking back on, sometimes we get the sense that we haven't traveled very far and we haven't accomplished very much and we haven't done very much. But if we look back retrospectively, right? You think about things in retrograde, lots of planets in retrograde are going retrograde right now. And it's a good time to be retrospective and reflect. And when we start to look back, we realize, if we look at sort of the small victories, we realize that we've probably done a whole hell of a lot more than we think or that we give ourselves credit for. And so we deserve the break now, right? We deserve to slow down and take some time to nurture ourselves and others. And everything can't be full tilt all the time. So one other thing, a couple other things I want to mention, but one thing is that on Thursday, again, when the solstice is happening, we're going to have Venus, which is in Leo right now, opposing Mars and Aquarius, right? So opposing energies, as I've said before, opposite each other in the sky, a need for balance in some way. And Mars and Venus are like the masculine and feminine versions of each other. Um, and so, you know, this can be just basically, to put it really simply, kind of like mixed. We can experience maybe some mixed signals in our relationships, and maybe a little bit of, you know, tension, or just things that need to be clarified and worked out. So try not to get too frustrated there, right? Seek the balance there, between those two energies. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about before I go through the signs, and this is the lead into that, is Mars retrograde. So Mars, the planet of our will and desire and impulses and instincts, aggression, action, that kind of thing, is going retrograde. And that's happening on Tuesday, the 26th. And so this happens once every couple of years. Mars goes retrograde, and it happens for about 3 months at a time, just shy of 3 months at a time. But it doesn't happen in the same sign all the time, right? And so that's really what marks the difference. So this time, Mars is going retrograde. It's starting retrograde in Aquarius, and then it's going to move back into Capricorn in August on the 12th for a bit before it stations direct and starts to move forward again. And so this is kind of going to impact you in two life areas, really, because it's going to traverse two different houses wherever Aquarius and Capricorn are for you. And I'm going to cover that at the end of the video. So Mars is going to be in Aquarius, as I said, until August 12th. It's going retrograde on the 26th of June, and it will be in Aquarius till the 12th. Then it's going to shift into Capricorn as it's moving backwards, or appears to be moving backwards. And it's going to be in Capricorn for the remainder of August, and then it will shift back into Aquarius. I can't remember the exact date, but September sometime, when things will then start feeling like it's time to launch forward. Perfect timing, right? September. So once again, there's this theme. Slow down. It's not time to majorly push ahead, right now. And so Mars retrograde is a really important time to think before you act. It's not time to be impulsive right now. And it's a time also when people who have issues, say, with like anger and impulse control and aggression, that kind of thing, it can be a time to sort of face the music there, or to really start to deal with that, and to reflect on that, and to get a handle on it, and to rein that in some way. And you may do that on your own, hopefully, or you may be forced to do it from external circumstances, right? It's sort of time to pay the piper, if that's the case. So this can be a time of like a buildup of tension, but as long as you direct that in healthy ways, it's not a bad thing. So it's good to release this pent up kind of inward turned Mars energy, right? Because again, when a planet goes retrograde, it tends to have an impact on us internally, largely. And so, if you're feeling this sort of pent up energy and frustration, then that energy needs to be released, but in a healthy way, right? Physical activity, creative expression, physical intimacy, that kind of thing, really, rather than lashing out at somebody, being aggressive, or being self destructive, right? That's another way, especially when the energy is turned inward. That's not the way to deal with this. So, you know, it's really a time to let cooler heads prevail, right? And take a step back and prepare to take action come September. It's a good time to work on like a project solo almost. Like if you have a project to work on and just slow and steady move forward with that. Um, but that doesn't necessarily involve having to work with too many people, then it's a good time for that too. But just naturally, think about it in the summertime. Again, things slow down. Our work, our action tends to slow down. Like, if we're working in an office environment, for example, I'm just using this as an example. I remember when I used to work in an office, you know, it would be everything would just slow down. It'd be harder to reach people, harder to um, set up meetings and have training sessions or anything of that nature, right? It just becomes harder because it's not the time for that. And so when we fight against the way things want to happen, the way nature intended, things don't tend to go well, right? We're met with obstacles and frustrations and like pushing a boulder up a hill kind of thing. And there's just really no use. We expend all this energy for very little reward in the end. And so it's just time to take our cues from nature and go, hey, it's summertime, chill, as much as you can anyway. And, when I was teaching, and teachers are just at the last push right now, um, before it's time to take a break for the summer. And, oh, they deserve that break. Trust me, speaking from experience. Time for the kids to take a break. Everything just kind of slows down. So that's what it's time for. And that's really the theme that's playing out for us right now. It's also a good time with this Mars retrograde to reflect on, what's your approach been to getting what you want? And is that working for you or not? Does that need to be readjusted and revisited and reflected on at this time? Okay, so as I promised, I'm going to talk about where this Mars retrograde is going to play out for you for each of the signs. And again, it's gonna be two signs, right? Because it's gonna be the first part of the retrograde in one sign, and then when it moves into Capricorn, it's gonna go into another house rather for you. So I'm gonna start with Aries, first sign of the zodiac, and so the Mars retrograde will first be playing out in your 11th and then your 10th house. So 11th house is the house of groups, organizations, our tribe, how we relate to the whole. It is the house of our like future visions and dreams and wishes and hopes. It's friendships, associations of those kinds, right? And then the 10th house is it's like our career ambitions, not so much our day-to-day work, but our career ambitions and our status and our reputation and our highest achievements and highest ambitions, really, and our public persona kind of thing. And so this Mars retrograde will be happening in those two houses for you. So consider that when you're thinking about, what I talked about in terms of what the retrograde means, right? So Taurus, this is playing out, and this is, when I say the signs, this is really gonna be felt most for the rising sign, but also the sun sign. Okay, so listen to me when I'm speaking about both your sun sign and your rising sign, if you know this, and also to some degree your moon sign. So Taurus, it's going to be in the 10th and the 9th houses. So 10th house I just spoke about when I talked to Aries. The 9th house is the house of higher learning, of like anything past high school kind of thing. Any learning that we do past that. Um, you know, and it's about the um the bigger picture, our philosophies and our belief systems and our worldview. It's about foreign cultures and foreign travel and connecting with people at a distance. It's about, seeking sort of higher knowledge in some way, right? So that's what that's about. Or that's where that's happening for you, Taurus. And then Gemini, it will be happening in the ninth house. So what I just spoke about for Taurus, and in the eighth house. So the eighth house is a house that covers things like our deep psychology, right? And hidden knowledge, like the occult, which is all that means. And it is like our connection to other people's money and resources, taxes, insurance, inheritance, but, how we rely on others to get our needs met, or that interaction. It's about our intimate, the more intimate relationship we have with ourselves and other people as well. It's about transformation and endings and new beginnings. So that's the eighth house. And so that's happening in your ninth and eighth house for Gemini. And then for Cancer, it's happening in your eighth house first, and then moving into your seventh house, which is the house. You heard me speak about that in terms of Neptune and where that's going to be for me. But this is seventh house of one-to-one relationships, and any kind of one-to-one, partnership that we have with another person. Our marriage falls into this category, and contracts, right? And this is where those two houses, the eighth and the seventh, is where this is playing out for you, this Mars retrograde. Then for Leo, seventh house initially, which I just covered, and then the sixth house, which will be happening starting August 12th. And so the sixth house is our house of the daily grind. It's what we do on the day to day, like our daily work, our how we are in service to others on the day to day. It's also about, how we keep our health and wellness in check or not. Anything health and wellness related, and those kinds of routines. And so that's for Leo and Leo rising. And then Virgo, it will be happening in your sixth house, which is the house you rule, and then later in August, starting on the 12th, it will move into your fifth house, which is the house that is all about our creative expression and our relationship to children in any way, whether they be ours or children that we are connected to in any way, shape, or form. And those childlike things in life, right? The fun, the pleasure, the romance, that kind of stuff. And so this is where this Mars retrograde is happening for you, Virgo, in the sixth and then the fifth houses. And Libra, starting out in the fifth house, which I just spoke about for Virgo, and then moving in August into your fourth house of home and family and your roots and your past, connection to sort of nurturing and the mother in some way. And so this is the area of life, or these areas of life, the fifth and fourth houses, where this Mars retrograde will be playing out for you. And then Scorpio, starting in the fourth house, which I just spoke about, and moving into the third house of relationships with like siblings and cousins and that kind of family, communications as well, and the day-to-day communications like emails and that kind of thing too, and of short distance travel, so short trips that you might make. And so this is where this Mars retrograde will play out for you, first in the fourth and then the third house. And Sagittarius, it will start in the third house for you, which I just spoke about, and move in August into the second house, which is the house of our resources. So money is covered there, but how we get our needs met, how we use our skills and talents to make a stable, life for ourselves, to and also about our worth, how much we value ourselves, our self-worth, and what we value, our sense of values, that kind of thing. So that's for Sagittarius. And then for Capricorn, the Mars retrograde will start out in your second house, which I just spoke about, and then it'll move into your first house, which is the house of self and the physical form, the physical being, the your initial sort of instincts and impulses, right? So really, but the house of self is a good way to put that. And that is where, so that covers like, kind of a big part of you, covers yourself. So that is where the Mars retrograde will be playing out for you. And then Aquarius, it will start in your first house, which I just spoke about. And then it will move into your 12th house of more your inner world and what's hidden and what other people don't see so much, in your spirituality and your connection to the spiritual, and those like it's our dream world too, and our imagination, and those Neptunian things that I talked about earlier in the video, right? It can be used to be known as the house of self-undoing, and I think that's because of this relationship that it has to the not so positive qualities of Neptune, right? Being the delusion and the escapism in unhealthy ways and that kind of thing. But if we harness the higher vibrational qualities, the spirituality, and the really going inward, and the self-reflection and self-awareness and being connected to something greater than ourselves, then that's the positive end of things, right? And so that's where this is happening for you. And lastly, Pisces, and I know what it's like to wait till the end because I'm a Pisces, so sorry for that. But Pisces, this is starting out in your 12th house, which I just spoke about, which is your home house. So it can tend to be a little bit more comfortable for you because you're used to that energy to begin with. And then it will move into the 11th house for you in August, which is, again, it's about friendships, our tribe, our connection to organizations and groups. Philanthropy, even, I tend to think falls into that house, and visions and hopes and dreams, that kind of thing. So that's it. That's the 12 signs. I know that makes the video quite a bit longer, and I'm sorry about that, but some people asked for it. So if you don't want to listen to that part, you don't have to. But I do appreciate you sticking it out to the end. Of course, if you want a personal reading with me, just get in touch at the link below. I would love to do that for you. And thank you for being here. And I will see you soon. Okay? Take care. Bye-bye.